It started out like any other quiet evening. I had just come home from work, exhausted, and all I wanted was a little peace. That's when I bumped into him again, Michael. He lived down the hall. We'd exchanged a few smiles in the hallway before, maybe a little small talk near the mailboxes. He always seemed polite, soft-spoken, the kind of man you don't give a second thought to. I thought he was harmless. That's what makes this even harder to say out loud. Because I didn't see it coming. That night, it was raining hard. I remember because the power flickered a few times, and the storm outside felt louder than usual. Michael knocked on my door just after 9 p.m. He was drenched, said he locked himself out, and asked if he could just stay for a bit to dry off while he waited for the locksmith. Something in me hesitated, but I didn't want to be rude. I let him in. He thanked me a dozen times, and we sat on the couch with a warm cup of tea while the storm kept banging on the windows. He talked about books. About his hometown. About nothing and everything. Honestly, it didn't seem odd at the time. He was charming in a very calm, quiet way. I didn't even realize when I dozed off. The sound of the rain mixed with the dim lights created a strange sort of peace that pulled me under. But when I opened my eyes, everything was different. The room was still, and the lights were off. And then I felt it, someone was lying next to me. That's when my heart started pounding. For a second, I thought maybe I was dreaming. But I wasn't. Michael was right there. Asleep. Calm. As if this was completely normal. As if he belonged there. I couldn't speak. I didn't know whether to scream or just pretend I was still asleep. My mind raced, full of questions. Did I invite this? Did I miss something? Why did he think this was okay? I kept thinking back to every word, every glance, every subtle moment earlier in the night. It all seemed so innocent, until now. And that was the moment I realized that people aren't always what they seem. That trust, once given carelessly, can be dangerous. This is a story I never thought I'd share. But it changed the way I look at people. It made me realize how close we can come to danger without even knowing it. What happened next left me shocked, confused, and more guarded than I've ever been in my life. And to this day, I still question whether I could have seen the signs sooner, or if there were any signs at all. Because what Michael did next, well, that's something I'll never forget. I laid there frozen, every part of me alert but still. My breath slowed, not because I was calm, but because I didn't want to make a sound. Michael looked peaceful, like he didn't realize anything was wrong. But everything was wrong. I replayed the evening in my mind, trying to figure out where the line had been crossed. He was never aggressive. He never even touched me before this. It was just tea. Just conversation. But now, he was sleeping inches away, and I didn't remember inviting that. I slowly shifted, careful not to wake him. My phone was on the coffee table, a few steps away. But to get to it, I'd have to move past him. I kept asking myself, was this just a misunderstanding? Or had he planned this from the start? The thought made my skin crawl. I didn't know enough about him. I didn't even know his last name. Just bits and pieces from the hallway. A few odd details from tonight, like how he said he didn't have any family nearby. Or how he avoided questions about work. My apartment suddenly felt unfamiliar. The soft lighting, the rain against the windows, it all turned eerie, like I was stuck in a dream I couldn't control. And the strangest part was how normal he looked. That made it worse. There was nothing loud or obvious about him. No warning signs, no raised voices. Just a quiet presence that somehow ended up next to me while I slept. As I slowly sat up, trying to make sense of the situation, Michael stirred. He mumbled something I couldn't make out and shifted under the blanket. I froze again, heart pounding. I didn't know what he'd say when he woke up, or what he'd do. But one thing was clear, this night was far from over. He slowly opened his eyes. For a split second, we just stared at each other. My throat was dry, my hands cold. I managed to ask, "Why are you here?" My voice was barely above a whisper. He blinked like he was still waking up, then smiled faintly, like this was all just fine. "You said I could stay," he murmured. "You don't remember?" That sentence messed with my head. I didn't know what scared me more, the idea that he was lying or the thought that maybe I really had said something without realizing it. I had been tired. The tea, had he put something in it? My mind spiraled with worst-case scenarios. But I couldn't show fear. I just nodded slowly, trying to stay calm, pretending like I wasn't on the verge of a breakdown. Michael sat up, stretched casually, and looked around like he was completely at home. That's when I noticed something even more unsettling. His wet jacket from earlier wasn't where I left it. And neither were his shoes. It was like he had unpacked himself in my space, even though I hadn't looked away for that long. Did he go through my things while I was asleep? I asked if he had heard from the locksmith. He looked confused, then brushed it off with a vague, "Oh yeah, he said he'll come later." That didn't make sense. Who waits for a locksmith all night and then forgets about him? That's when I realized, maybe there never was one. In the corner of my eye, I saw my bedroom door slightly open. I never left it that way. My heart sank deeper. Was he in there? What had he done while I slept? Every second with him in the room felt heavier. And I still had no idea what he truly wanted. I stood up slowly, pretending to stretch, my eyes darting toward my phone again. Still too far. Michael's gaze followed me, and for the first time, something in his expression changed. That calm softness shifted, just a little. Like he knew I was starting to sense something wasn't right. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. I forced a smile, nodded, but inside I was screaming. "I'm just going to grab some water," I said, inching toward the kitchen. He didn't say anything. Just sat there on the edge of the couch, watching. My mind was racing. I needed to call someone, anyone, but the phone was still out of reach. The kitchen drawer had a small paring knife. Not that I wanted to use it. I just needed something to feel like I had control again. As I stepped into the kitchen, I glanced back, and he was gone from the couch. Panic hit my chest like a punch. I scanned the room. Silence. Then a soft creak came from the hallway near my bedroom. I crept toward the door, unsure if I should confront him or run. But run where? It was still pouring outside, and I didn't even have my keys. Every shadow in the apartment felt louder. Bigger. And then I heard something that made my blood run cold, a quiet click. The bedroom door locking from the inside. Why would he lock himself in there? Unless he wasn't alone. My hands started shaking. Was someone else here? Had I been so out of it that I missed more than just him walking around? I pressed my ear against the door, heart pounding so hard I could barely hear. Something moved on the other side. Slowly. Deliberately. Whatever this was, I wasn't ready for it. But it was happening. Now. I stood frozen at the door, my ear pressed to the wood, trying to make sense of the soft thuds and shifting noises coming from inside. Every inch of me screamed to run, but my legs wouldn't move. My apartment, my safe place, suddenly felt like a trap. I backed away slowly, heart racing, and turned toward the living room. That's when I saw something I hadn't noticed before. My front door latch, it was locked from the inside. Not the usual knob lock, but the chain. One I rarely used. And I hadn't locked it. Which meant he did. My mind started connecting pieces I didn't want to see. The missing jacket and shoes. The calm smile. The strange confidence like he belonged here. And now, the locked door. He hadn't been locked out of his own apartment. That had been a lie. All of it. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was sitting on the edge of the coffee table. Michael must have left it out in the open. A single notification lit up the screen. Unknown number, you need to get out now. He's not who you think. I stared at the message, my pulse thundering in my ears. Who was watching? Who knew? And how did they have my number? Before I could process any of it, the bedroom door creaked open. I turned, expecting to see Michael. But it wasn't him. A woman stepped out. She looked disoriented, her hair messy, eyes wide like she'd just woken up in a nightmare. She clutched my throw blanket tightly around her and whispered, "Please, help me. I don't know where I am." I took a step back, stunned. "Who are you?" I asked. She shook her head. "He said I could rest here." I thought this was someone else's apartment. That's when I saw Michael again, standing quietly in the hallway behind her. No expression on his face. No apology. Just silence. Something deeper, darker, was happening here. And now I wasn't the only one trapped. My instincts finally kicked in. I grabbed the woman's arm and pulled her toward me, whispering, "We need to leave. Now." She nodded, still shaking, barely able to stand. Michael just watched us, still silent, as if this was all playing out exactly how he expected. But I couldn't read him anymore. Was he dangerous? Or just disturbed? Either way, I wasn't staying to find out. I yanked the chain lock off the door, flung it open, and we ran barefoot into the rain. I didn't even look back. We kept running down the hallway, soaking wet within seconds, until we reached the stairwell. My mind was a blur, trying to remember if I had locked the building entrance or if anyone else was even home. Down the stairs, out into the street, we didn't stop until we reached a gas station 3 blocks away. I handed the clerk my phone and begged him to call the police. They arrived within minutes. I was out of breath, drenched, and trembling, but I somehow managed to explain everything: Michael, the locked door, the message, and the woman who had no idea where she even was. The police went to my apartment. And that's where everything took another turn. They found Michael calmly sitting on the couch, hands folded, like he was waiting for someone. But when they searched the place, they found something neither of us expected: a collection of driver's licenses. None of them were his. Some were women. Some men. All strangers. One of them belonged to the woman who'd come out of my room. Her real name was Amber, and she had been missing for 3 days. Michael was arrested on the spot. As for the text message, the number was untraceable. No caller ID, no digital footprint. Like someone had been watching all along, but didn't want to be found. Later that night, when I finally returned home, the last thing I saw before I closed the door was a small piece of folded paper on my kitchen counter. I didn't put it there. It simply said, "You were never the target. You just answered the door." I stood in my kitchen for a long time, staring at that note. You were never the target. You just answered the door. Those words kept echoing in my mind, twisting my thoughts in circles. What did it even mean? Was Amber the target all along? Was I just caught in someone else's plan? I had no answers, just more questions. But the one thing I did know was that I wasn't crazy. That night had really happened. And it changed everything. In the days that followed, I tried to go back to normal, but the feeling of being watched never fully left. The police kept most of the details private, only telling me that Michael wasn't using his real name and had a record in another state under a different identity. They were still investigating the IDs they found, each one linked to people who had either gone missing or reported strange encounters. Amber was taken to a recovery center, and though we spoke only once afterward, she told me something that stayed with me: "You saved me without even knowing me." I changed my locks. Installed cameras. Even got a second phone. And I never left my door unlocked again, not even for a second. Because if I learned anything from that experience, it's this: sometimes, the scariest people are the ones who look the most normal. The ones you pass by every day. The ones who smile politely and never raise suspicion. I shared my story not just to get it off my chest, but to remind others to trust their instincts. Looking back, I felt uneasy the moment he asked to come in, but I didn't want to seem rude. That tiny decision almost changed my life forever. So if something ever feels off, don't brush it aside. Listen to that voice in your gut. Because the truth is, danger doesn't always kick down your door. Sometimes, it knocks politely and waits for you to open it. Thank you for listening to my true shock story. If it gave you chills or made you think twice about trust, don't forget to share it with someone. You never know who might need the warning.